Day 1 of returning to the wealthy family. He had already slapped the faces of that entire crowd. 1 second ago, his biological parents were still saying, "You grew up in an orphanage, you probably have no manners or skills," so they kept coaxing the fake young master, who was crying a river, assuring him that bringing the real son back was just for a business marriage arrangement. But the very next second, he left the fake young master completely speechless. "Have you ever met your biological mother?" he asked. "I have. She ran up to me, knelt right in front of me, and begged me not to kick you out of the Wood family. Do you know why? Because she contracted a severe, life-threatening immune disease and needs a ton of money for treatment. She was terrified that if you left the Wood family, her ATM would vanish." Max Wood, have you ever actually given her a single dime? Max froze on the spot, his mouth opening and closing like a stranded fish, unable to utter a single word. But Cole ignored him and pressed on. "Do you even know your biological father's last name? Need me to spell it out for you?" At this point, a female cousin of the Wood family couldn't take it anymore. She raised her hand to slap him. "You better shut your mouth right now!" A crisp, resounding sound echoed through the room. But before her hand could even touch him, a plate still holding a slice of cake had been smashed directly onto her head. Bright red strawberry jam, or maybe blood, dripped down from her hair. Her vicious glare instantly transformed into a look of absolute horror and bewilderment. Cole calmly brushed the cake crumbs off his hands. "You wanted to hit me? Who do you think you are to lay a finger on me?" He scrutinized the woman's cake-covered face. "With a face this ugly? I highly doubt you're a biological child of this family either. Maybe you should go take a DNA test too. Hit a 2-for-1 discount with your precious cousin over there." Then he tilted his head, looking past her at Max, who was hiding behind her. "Well, Max?" Max suddenly looked up, glaring at Cole as if he wanted to chop him into little pieces, but in the end, he just clutched his head and let out a dramatic, agonizing scream. At this moment, Granny Wood rushed over, glaring daggers at Cole. "I know you have an issue with Max. Regardless, you two are brothers, but your upbringings are worlds apart. It's normal for you to hold some resentment, but you need to get one thing straight. This is not Max's fault. The Wood family owes you. We, your elders, will naturally compensate you. But that does not give you the right to act arrogant and bully your younger brother. If the orphanage that raised you didn't teach you these basic manners, then starting today it's not too late for me to teach you. You've been back for so long, have you even called me Granny once? Do you lack even the most basic courtesy?" Hearing this, Cole slowly raised his eyelids, looking at the harsh, bitter old woman. "Trying to pull the elder card on me? I beat the director of my orphanage into a concussion before I agreed to call him Grandpa. How about I give you a good smack to the head too, then I'll call you Granny. Sound like a deal?" Granny Wood was stunned. "What did you just say?" Max looked at him in sheer disbelief. "Are you crazy? How can you talk to Granny like that?" "Who's Granny?" Cole retorted. "I share 0 DNA with you. How could we possibly have the same grandmother? Stop trying to claim relatives out of thin air." Right on cue, Granny Wood clutched her chest and collapsed. The room erupted into chaos. Some yelled for medicine, others rushed to carry her. Everything was executed so smoothly it was as if they had rehearsed this 100 times. The joyous welcome party ended in a complete disaster. After Granny Wood was revived, she lay weakly on her bed, gasping out, "Fiona, I don't care if you buy him a house somewhere else in the city or send him abroad to study. I just don't want to see him in the Wood family mansion ever again." Fiona, the mother, looked terrible. "Mom, what are you saying?" "I'll have a proper talk with Cole." "Talk about what? What is there to talk about? I can see he doesn't even want to acknowledge me as his grandmother, nor you as his mother." Cole, who had been silently letting them vent, suddenly looked up. "I never said I wouldn't acknowledge my mother, I just don't acknowledge you. After all, my mother hasn't personally told me that Max is her only true son." Amidst everyone's shock, he took a step forward, staring directly at Fiona. "Well, are you going to follow this old lady's lead and declare that Max is your only real son? If so, then I really did come to the wrong place." Fiona froze. Max stiffened as well. He turned to look at Fiona, and when she didn't answer immediately, his eyes turned red with disbelief. He called out, "Mom!" in a voice full of heartbreak. But Fiona didn't dare turn her head. The young man standing opposite her didn't look like a pitiful long-lost son. He looked more like a cold, detached judge, waiting to give her a failing grade and kick her out of the game entirely. Even though she didn't know where this feeling came from, her instincts screamed that she did not want to be eliminated. Fiona hesitated, then said awkwardly, "Cole, don't be so hostile towards Max. We've raised him for 20 years. Even if there's no blood." Before she could finish, Cole cut her off. But the people in the room had already heard those words. A few distant relatives who didn't know the truth couldn't hide their shock. The old lady started gasping for air again. Between heavy pants, she yelled, "Kick him out! Kick him out right now! If he doesn't acknowledge me as his grandmother, then my Wood family doesn't need him as a grandson." She forced herself to shout before clutching her chest and collapsing back onto the pillows. In the midst of the chaos, someone pushed the door open and walked in. Max took half a step back and timidly called out, "Dad!" Derek Wood swept his gaze over the crowded room. "What are you all doing crowding in here? Don't you know the old madam needs rest?" The old lady grabbed his hand. "I can't afford to offend this new son of yours. Let me tell you, Derek, In this house, it's either him or me. From now on, my only grandson is Max. If you dare let him stay in the Wood family, you can wait to collect my corpse." Having delivered her ultimatum, she shut her eyes, refusing to communicate further. Derek didn't show a ripple of emotion. He turned to look at Cole standing by the bed, then glanced at everyone else. "Let's go to the next room." The Wood family's tea room was spacious, perfectly suited for a large family meeting. Derek chuckled softly. "I have to tell you, your grandmother absolutely adores Max. Plus, she's getting old and can't handle much excitement. So, even out of respect for her, we absolutely will not easily kick Max out of the Wood family. I also have to tell you," Cole replied, "that I absolutely despise Max and that old lady too. If you have to choose between me and them, and you choose them, then I have no problem not accepting you as my parents." Derek stared at Cole. "Do you think I care whether you value the Wood family or not?" Fiona gasped. Max couldn't believe his ears. In this entire city, no one had ever dared to speak to Derek Wood like that. But after Cole said it, Derek showed no signs of anger. He looked at Cole for a moment, then suddenly burst out laughing. "Kid, the person you call an old lady is my mother. And Max, despite having no blood relation to me, has essentially been raised as my and your mother's adopted son. 20 years of living together, even a dog would have earned our affection, let alone a human. You want us to unconditionally choose you over them? That's not going to be easy." Derek looked at his newly discovered biological son. Though he spoke from a position of authority, his eyes were unexpectedly mild, holding a hint of playful amusement. "Even if you don't care about the Wood family, the fact that you chose to come here proves that we have something you want. Since that's the case, why not try taking it yourself?" Derek glanced at Fiona, hesitated for a second, then patted Cole's head. "Your mother loves you very much, don't ever doubt that." Fiona's eyes immediately reddened. Derek concluded the meeting. "All right, today's welcome party is over before it even began. Go back to your room and rest. After we see the guests out, I'll introduce you to your older brother and sister." However, the conversation with his siblings wasn't going to be smooth either. Walking downstairs, he only saw his sister, Ruby Wood. She gave him a half smile and beckoned him over with a finger. "Call me big sister, let's hear how it sounds." Cole sat down, taking a bite of a bun. "Call me little brother, let's hear how it sounds. Too cheesy. Max and I just use our names, why should I be so overly affectionate with you?" Footsteps echoed from the stairs above. Cole's eyelashes fluttered slightly. "Probably because I'm the real deal and Max is a knockoff." Ruby froze, glancing toward the stairs. Cole then slowly turned his head. Standing on the stairs was Max, his eyes red. He gave Cole one wounded look before turning and running away. Granny Wood anxiously called out, "Max," but couldn't stop him. The old lady even wanted to chase after him herself but was held back by someone supporting her. "Granny, how old are you? You want to go chasing people on the stairs? Oh dear, you're trying to give me a heart attack." The old lady trembled, slapping the handrail in fury. From half a flight of stairs up, she pointed straight at Cole's nose. "You karmic debt! Why are you still leeching off the Wood family? Who are you calling a knockoff? I decide who is real and who is fake. Whoever is my precious boy is the real one. I want you out of the Wood family right now." "Granny, don't get too excited. Be careful not to trigger your illness again." The words were interrupted. The speaker's tone was incredibly calm, completely lacking any sharpness. It was the same aura Derek had last night. Cole looked up and saw a man with long hair, his face obscured by the shadows, holding tightly onto Granny Wood. At first glance he seemed to be supporting her, but he was actually pinning her in place so her trembling body wouldn't fall. It wasn't until the butler rushed up to help the panting old lady upstairs that the man adjusted his clothes and slowly walked down. He had a kind of cold, wild, untamed energy. It wasn't until he got closer that Cole realized this unique aura came from his very soul. One look and you knew he was a force to be reckoned with. "Cole." His voice was freezing, devoid of any emotion. It was somewhat similar to Derek's but lacked even the superficial warmth Derek possessed. Cole met his gaze and gave a single nod. "I'm Cole, I'm Tom, your older brother." The word was spoken crisply and efficiently. Ruby, sitting to the side, narrowed her eyes in annoyance and tapped the table. What is this, double standards? No one paid her any mind. Instead, Tom stared at Cole for a moment before speaking slowly. "Have you ever considered that an angry old person might actually fall down the stairs?" Cole didn't flinch, looking straight back at Tom, and answered leisurely, "Never." "Then it's best you start considering it from now on." Tom didn't push the issue. Leaving that single sentence hanging in the air, he took his seat. About half an hour later, the blood relatives of the Wood family finally gathered fully at the breakfast table. Derek sat at the head. Fiona and Tom sat below him on either side. Since Cole had just returned, he was given special treatment and seated next to Fiona. Opposite him was his Uncle Barry. Further down was Ruby, and opposite Ruby was Aunt Brenda. Breakfast had just been served. Before anyone could pick up their chopsticks, Aunt Brenda fired the first sarcastic shot. "I specifically had the kitchen make the bread Granny likes most. Who knew it would be for nothing? I mean, really, when someone pisses off an old lady so much she's bedridden first thing in the morning, how can they still sit here and eat happily?" The atmosphere at the table instantly grew tense. Some pretended not to hear and naturally started eating. But others couldn't hold back. "Didn't someone already take breakfast up to her? Plus, Max is keeping her company. She'll be fine," someone retorted. The biological grandson has only been back for a day, and he's already made her so mad she refuses to come down to eat. You call that fine? Aunt Brenda continued to mock. And you have the nerve to mention Max. Poor Max. Before yesterday, that boy was the apple of this family's eye. The bio son comes back and boom, Max's place is snatched away. Now Max doesn't even get a seat at the table. He has to stay upstairs comforting the old lady who got sick because of the bio son. I'm just saying, sister-in-law as parents, you shouldn't be so blatantly biased. Aunt Brenda, Tom spoke up. He was casually scooping porridge into his bowl. Is the breakfast not to your liking? Is that why you have so much free time to gossip with my mother? It was a blatantly aggressive, sarcastic remark, yet Tom delivered it as if he were merely making small talk. Aunt Brenda snorted, slamming her chopsticks down. What? Am I not allowed to speak in this house anymore? Tom, you've always been the sensible one. What's going on? Are you siding with Cole too? Is blood really that important? Max has followed you two siblings around for years, calling you brother and sister countless times. How can you all be so cold-blooded? Slam! A sound even louder than her chopstick slam echoed. Ruby had forcefully slammed her bowl onto the table. She looked straight at Aunt Brenda. Aunt Brenda, my father hasn't even spoken yet. When is it your turn to come over here and lecture my brother? Ruby, Uncle Barry finally felt forced to intervene. How can you speak to an elder like that? Does getting a biological brother back suddenly infect you with bad manners? What kind of nonsense are you spouting? Fiona couldn't hold back anymore. Cole has only been home a few days, and you two have done nothing but find him an eyesore. Who wouldn't find him an eyesore? The moment he gets back, he turns the place upside down. Does he think he's the Monkey King wrecking heaven? Aunt Brenda's voice rose an octave. Is this what Cole wants? Wasn't it your terrible idea to tell Mom to hide the truth and announce to the public that they're both biological sons? If you hadn't done that, we could have explained everything clearly before Cole even returned. None of this would be happening. How dare you defend him? The child you raised for 20 years you just toss aside like garbage. What twisted logic is that? What do you mean toss aside? Is an adopted son not a son? We cherish them equally. How is it equal? Turning a biological son into an adopted one, you're basically stomping Max's pride into the dirt. The way you clink. For the third time, a noise interrupted the argument. This time it was Cole placing his spoon down on his plate, creating a sharp, crisp sound. He looked at Aunt Brenda sitting opposite him and said slowly, "So, that was your idea?" Aunt Brenda, who was gearing up to keep arguing with Fiona, suddenly felt a chill run down her spine when she met Cole's eyes. She completely forgot what she was going to say. Years later, Aunt Brenda would still remember that look. It was like some wild beast or an inhuman, evil deity staring at an ant that had provoked it. Even the disgust was expressed with a chilling indifference that struck fear into the soul. But then the fear quickly turned into defensive anger over her own insignificance. He truly is a freakish monster. No wonder he turned the city upside down. He almost destroyed the Wood family too. By then, a gray-haired Aunt Brenda would be hiding abroad, recounting the past to her grandchildren, cursing him endlessly. But she would always end with a warning. If you ever see his descendants, stay far, far away. Who knows if his evil nature is genetic? None of them are good people. But that was all a story for a distant future. Right now, everything was still unfolding on the Wood family's breakfast table. A breakfast that hadn't even been finished, interrupted by a series of unexpected incidents. Regardless, Cole's first breakfast at the Wood family was somewhat peacefully concluded. At least no one threw hands. After the meal, everyone in the Wood family busied themselves with their own affairs. Cole, however, was blocked by Ruby in the garden. You've got quite the talent for causing trouble, don't you? Cole smiled back at her. Your acting skills aren't too bad yourself. Ruby smirked, but her eyes grew colder. I don't care what your endgame is, whether you're scheming for the Wood family's money, status, or family affection, it has nothing to do with me. But there is one absolute rule. Do not cause trouble for Tom, she warned him coldly. You've already made him clean up your mess twice, and those were just minor headaches. With your capabilities, I'm sure there will be plenty of opportunities to cause massive disasters in the future. So since I have the time today, I'll give you a heads up. Every mess created by the Wood family kids eventually lands on Tom's desk to solve, and I absolutely hate that. So from now on, you'd better stop causing trouble. At the very least, do not bother Tom for anything. Tell me, can you do that, little brother? The wind rustled through the leaves. Cole looked at the woman in front of him, assessing her from head to toe before speaking slowly. Turns out, you're a brocon. Ruby's mouth twitched. She looked like she desperately wanted to argue but held it back, saying with a hint of impatience, just tell me if you understand or not. Cole let out an "oh, understood." Seeing him suddenly act so docile, Ruby was a bit surprised. Her expression softened considerably. All right, she pulled out a card from nowhere. Since you are my biological brother after all, here's a welcome gift. There's 2 million in here. Take it for pocket money. What are you guys doing? A cool voice rang out. Cole turned his head. It was Tom. Ruby's expression instantly turned gentle. Bro, are you heading to the office? Going to the airport for a business trip. Tom glanced at her, then let his gaze rest on Cole. He waved him over. Cole obediently walked over, only to have another card shoved into his hand. There's 5 million in here. Take it for pocket money. From now on, I'll transfer you $300,000 a month for basic living expenses. He kept it brief. You just got back to the family, so you probably don't know the rules. Our family is like this. While we don't lack money, we don't allow our kids to be leeches. You have to earn your own money, whether it's starting a business or doing something else. If you need startup capital, you can come to me. Cole flipped the card over and asked, what about Max? Does he earn his own money too? He hasn't graduated college yet, so there's no mandatory rule. But he's already interning at the company as a junior designer. He makes a little money on the side. Speaking of which, you're only 20 as well. I suppose there's no immediate pressure for you to work either. Tom seemed to suddenly remember that this newly arrived biological brother and the fake brother Max were born in the same year and month. Are you in college? Cole nodded. Which school? Imperial Capital University. Tom's indifferent gaze suddenly faltered. Ruby, who had just walked over, also froze. She looked incredulous. The Imperial Capital University in the capital? Cole looked at her weirdly. Is there another Imperial Capital University in this country? Tom observed him, a rare hint of a smile appearing. What a coincidence. I guess we're alumni. He finally showed a spark of interest in initiating a conversation, continuing to ask as they walked, what's your major? Double major in fine arts and psychology. Tom paused again. Both were elite, high-demand majors at ICU. The grade requirements must have been insanely high. It's nothing special. Ruby rolled her eyes from the sidelines. Summer vacation is almost over. When are you heading back to school? I'm not. I applied to be an exchange student at River City University, and it got approved. I'll be staying in River City next semester. River City University was the top school in this city. Though its national ranking couldn't beat ICU, it was still in the top 10. Tom nodded. Then you can make some new friends. Coincidentally, Max goes to River City U too. Cole instantly went dead silent. Tom looked at him and added, if there's anything you don't understand, you can ask Max. Cole remained silent. Tom casually continued, if you get into trouble outside, you can also ask Max for help. Cole still didn't say a word. Ruby laughed beside them. Seems like you really hate Max. Cole looked at them like they were crazy. Shouldn't I hate him? Whether you should or shouldn't, I advise you not to, Tom said calmly. With Granny here, you can't kick him out of the Wood family, let alone the fact that Mom has truly loved him for 20 years. She won't ever send him away. So, hating him is useless. It'll just make you miserable. But I don't feel miserable. In this world, no one makes me swallow my pride, whether it's someone I like or someone I hate. Do you all really think that with me in the Wood family, Max is going to have a happy life? Don't worry. The person who ends up miserable definitely won't be me. Bye. With that, he turned and walked straight away. Watching his retreating back, Ruby eventually inhaled sharply. That personality is a bit terrifying, isn't it? Well, at least he won't be bullied. That's good. The next day, exactly as expected, Granny Wood and her trusty sidekick, Max, started stirring the pot again. As soon as Cole walked through the door, he saw the room packed with people. He quietly sat down next to Ruby. She grumbled, this is all your fault for causing trouble everywhere. I just got to the company and was immediately called back for a family meeting. A meeting about what? Discussing whether you stay or go. Obviously, Granny Wood was actively throwing a fit. If none of you listen to me, then there's no point in me staying in this house as a mother or a grandmother. Derek, find me another house. I'll take Max and move there. It's better than staying here and being angered to death by your precious grandson. Max immediately put on his understanding White Lotus act. Granny, you are the pillar of this family. How can you leave? If brother doesn't like me, I'll be the one to go. I'm all grown up anyway. It's time for me to be independent. Please don't worry about me. The old lady touched his face, heartbroken. How could I allow that? Our Max has been spoiled since he was a baby. You will always be my precious little grandson. If they don't care about you, it doesn't matter. I will love you double. We haven't abandoned Max, Fiona started to say, but was cut off by the old lady. Oh sure, you take such good care of him. You let Cole bully him from inside the house to out on the streets, forcing him to swallow his grievances. Is that your version of taking care of him? Max hurriedly tried to play peacemaker. Granny, please don't blame Mom. Brother suffered so much outside, it was hard for him to finally come home. Mom just wants to make it up to him a little. It's my fault for not bearing to part with you, with Mom and Dad, and my siblings, which is why I shamelessly stayed. As he spoke, tears rolled down his cheeks. The old lady choked up with sorrow. Fiona quickly asked someone to fetch tissues. Tom passed them over and casually patted Max's head. You don't need to feel shameless for staying in the Wood family. You will always be Mom's son. No one is kicking you out, Fiona chimed in, wiping his tears. Max sniffled, looking up with an expression of overwhelming gratitude. Brother, then will I always be your little brother too? Cole coldly observed this soap opera, scoffing inwardly. This family is really good at acting, but if they think they can use this trick on me, they're way too naive. He just sat quietly next to Ruby, watching the circus unfold. Max cried while pretending to be exceptionally understanding. Granny and Fiona argued back and forth, turning the atmosphere incredibly tense. Ruby leaned in and whispered, "Are you seriously not jealous?" Cole couldn't be bothered to reply, just looked down at his phone. Right when Granny and Fiona were locked in a heated argument, a servant announced that Miss Sterling had arrived to visit. Chloe Sterling rolled in on her wheelchair, calmly proposing a business collaboration to Derek. They discussed business right in front of everyone, securing the status of the second young master in the main family. Hearing this, Granny flew into a rage, pointing at Cole and cursing relentlessly. You rebellious brat! You think you can rely on a woman to back you up? Then get the hell out of here right now! The Wood family will never accept a thick-skinned descendant like you! Fiona suddenly stood up, glaring at the old lady with red eyes. She grabbed Cole, pulling him up, and said straight to the old lady's face, "If my son is so terrible in your eyes, then he and I will get the hell out of this Wood family together." Having said that, she didn't forget to glare at Cole. Bow your head and greet her. Do you have no respect for your elders? Cole was slightly confused, but obediently did as told. Fiona stood up straight and said expressionlessly, "As for the divorce you just mentioned, fine, let's divorce. I'll get the papers ready." The Wood family men stood there frozen like statues. Fiona dragged Cole upstairs, striding with purpose. "What are you standing around for? Go pack your bags," Cole dazedly replied. Yes, while holding tightly onto her hand. This sudden warmth made him momentarily flustered, but an indescribable emotion surged in his chest. Seeing this, Chloe Sterling regretfully announced that the collaboration was cancelled. Before leaving, she made sure to land one final blow. "Granny Wood, there's one thing you've misunderstood. I'm willing to do these things for Cole, not because he's a member of the Wood family, but because he is Cole. Watching Chloe leave, Cole mentally calculated his next move. This show has just begun. Let's see what other tricks the Wood family has up their sleeves. A long while later, Granny finally processed what had just happened. She clutched her chest, struggling to breathe again. She grabbed her eldest son's hand. "What does your wife mean by this? Is she planning a rebellion?" Unexpectedly, Derek remained expressionless. "You're the one who wanted to tear this family apart." Ruby, who had been silent, finally spoke up in a nonchalant tone. "Granny, I don't want to become a child out of a single-parent household. If the paparazzi find out, the internet will say you're an unreasonable tyrant who can't tolerate your own daughter-in-law and biological grandson. Where will you hide your old face then?" Granny Wood successfully fainted for the second time. Since things had escalated to this point, Uncle Barry's family didn't dare interject anymore and quietly slipped away. Once the living room was empty, except for the father and son, Tom spoke. "Dad, do you think Chloe Sterling's collaboration proposal is reliable? She's a shark that eats without spitting out the bones. Would she really yield profits to us?" But seeing how she acts towards Cole, before he could finish, Derek shook his head. "Let's wait and see." Then he added, "Didn't you buy the villa next door a few years ago? Just let your mother take Cole over there for now." Returning to his room, Derek looked at the luggage strewn across the floor and took a deep breath. "Is she really going to divorce me over this?" His instinct was to throw a sarcastic remark, but thinking of his eldest son's cold face, yet hearing his wife making demands like she was acting spoiled, he turned and negotiated. "Cole, let's temporarily move to the house next door, okay? Don't worry, Mom promises not to let anyone bother us." Cole nodded. So Tom personally drove, hauling Fiona's mountain of luggage, and took them to the white villa next door. Tom tilted his head, looking at Cole in confusion. "Is this all the luggage you have? Didn't you study art? You must have tools you use often, or your art drafts and things?" Cole remained as cold as ever. "I actually have a lot of stuff, but it's all stored at the orphanage. I wasn't sure if I could bring them here." Hearing this, Fiona gripped Cole's hand tightly, tears welling up. "You silly child, why couldn't you bring them? Keeping your things at your own home is perfectly natural. You misunderstand. It's not that I was too timid to bring them. It's just, I wasn't sure if you people were actually qualified to be my family." Fiona froze instantly. Ruby, who was helping with the bags, and Derek all stopped in their tracks. Everyone stared at him. Cole continued speaking to himself. "My standards for family are extremely strict. A place that hasn't earned my trust has no right to safeguard my precious belongings." As soon as the words left his mouth, Tom smacked him on the back of the head. Tom leaned down, pressing his forehead against Cole's, staring deep into his eyes. "I don't know where you got these weird ideas, but you're in my territory now. I won't allow you to casually spout such arrogant nonsense anymore and break Mom's heart." Then his tone shifted, softening considerably. "So tell me, what will it take for you to feel safe bringing your luggage here?" Cole thought for a few seconds. "First, I can't live in the main Wood mansion. What if that old lady kicks me out again?" Tom stood up straight. "I'll give you this house." Cole frowned in disapproval. "Do I look like the kind of guy who just steals other people's houses for no reason? Transfer the deed to Mom. Also, besides me and Mom, no one is allowed to enter without asking first." With that, he turned and went upstairs. The four remaining people in the living room looked at each other in bewilderment. Fiona covered her face. "It's all my fault. Why didn't I recognize my own biological son back then? If it weren't for me, Cole wouldn't be like this." Tom knelt in front of Fiona, holding her wrist. "Mom, it's actually not that bad. Didn't you notice? Although Cole is highly defensive against us, he's willing to trust you." Ruby chimed in. "Exactly. Otherwise, why would he demand Tom transfer the house to you? Only with you here is he willing to bring his luggage and call this place home." Derek also nodded quietly. Fiona looked up, eyes brimming with tears. "Really? Cole is truly willing to trust me?" Ruby wiped Fiona's tears with a tissue. "Honestly, moving out like this is a good thing. With Cole's personality, if he stayed at the main house, he might actually give Granny a heart attack. Plus, with Max there, you'd find it hard to completely take his side. That would make it impossible for him to let his guard down." This is much better. You can focus on building a mother-son bond with him in peace. Fiona's eyes lit up and she squeezed Ruby's hand. You're right. Ruby slumped her shoulders, sighing. I think everyone's realized it by now. Cole is definitely unique. I always thought kids from orphanages would either be overly obedient or timid, but after interacting with him, she shook her head, her brows knitting together tightly. His personality is way more complex than that. She turned to Derek. Dad, didn't you have people investigate? What were the results? How exactly did he grow up in that small town? Just then, hurried footsteps echoed from upstairs. The conversation halted abruptly. Cole dashed out to the hallway, looking down. For once, his face showed clear excitement. I want the room next to the big tree. Bro, hurry up and give the deed to Mom. I'm gonna ask the director to ship my stuff tonight. Tom froze at the natural, joyful bro. He had been called brother for years, but why did this one feel so different? It was as if this was his very first time actually being an older brother. On the drive back to the main house, Tom pulled the car over. Dad, the question Ruby asked. I want to know the answer too. The investigation results were actually very ordinary, just as we imagined. He grew up in the orphanage and never left. The only slightly different detail is that the orphanage once received funding from wealthy elites. Floral River County is a small town that relies on planting flowers. Years ago, it became famous nationwide for being incredibly poor due to some news events. It immediately attracted funding from tycoons. A few corporations set up charity operations there and gained quite a bit of good PR. The Wood family was one of them. Tom's voice suddenly broke in. But I recall Floral River County. There was another incident, wasn't there? It was a massive scandal back then. Something about the girls in that orphanage. About 6 or 7 years ago, an artist named Seven blew up on Weibo. He liked using detailed strokes to document real-life scenes. In less than half a year, he gained over 5 million followers, affectionately dubbed the 2D Doctor by his fans. It was in this context that Seven began publishing his only short comic series. The main characters were a group of kids living in an orphanage. Though the premise sounded pitiful, Seven's art style was delicate and heartwarming. The orphans didn't look tragic or miserable, instead they were lively, adorable, and full of innocence. Interwoven with the slight melancholy were numerous heartwarming slice-of-life moments. Even the simplest plots made readers laugh and cry. The story updated regularly to high anticipation until it hit a turning point. A plot device hinted at in Chapter 1, the arrival of the philanthropist. The kids had been practicing singing, dancing, and reciting poetry every day just for this, causing many silly, innocent mishaps. When the philanthropist finally arrived, the kids' efforts were ready to be reviewed. The readers were eagerly waiting to see more hilarious or touching scenes. They did get them, but alongside those scenes, many noticed a bizarre anomaly. A netizen commented, "Is it just me, or was the conversation between Kid A and that uncle super weird? Why did the rich guy doing charity refuse to talk to the director and insist on meeting the kids one-on-one? And why did Kid C change into brand new expensive-looking clothes after just half a day? I have a bad feeling about this." The comic kept updating. As the story progressed, more and more creepy details were buried within the warm, healing daily lives. Kids were frequently taken away for private chats with uncles. They'd return with expensive gifts and change out of their old clothes. One kid suddenly fell ill and was bedridden for days. Another kid, while playing, revealed countless bruises hidden under their shirt. Besides that, the comic remained full of innocence. Life at the orphanage was still warm and vivid, but the comment section was no longer crying tears of joy. Everyone was getting chills. Some refused to believe it, frantically questioning Seven in the comments, but Seven stayed silent. The story just coldly marched on, until the final chapter dropped. A new character appeared, a stranger who seemingly got lost and wandered into this secluded orphanage. First, he played games with the kids in the sunlit courtyard. Then, surrounded by them, he left scribbles on the wall. Finally, his day trip ended. Humming a tune and tossing a black go piece, he was about to leave. But right before heading back, he passed a dusty window and casually glanced inside. He couldn't help but stop. The bedsheets were a mess, dotted with flashy hair ties. Children's clothes were crumpled in a pile, and a patch of tender skin was exposed, covered in bruises. The stranger couldn't help but widen his eyes and step closer to the window. But before he could see the child clearly, a pair of murky eyes suddenly magnified right in front of him. The penultimate panel of the comic was a giant, monstrous eyeball. It blocked the peeling window entirely. The filthy, cloudy pupil was constricted to the max, the whites heavily bloodshot, glaring viciously at the stranger like a predator hunting its prey. The very last panel was a black go piece. It fell onto the dusty floor. Against the pure white background, a corner of it was silently chipped away. That was how the story ended. And in the bottom right corner of the final panel, a chilling line was written, "Based on true events." Illustrated by Seven. The Wood family was implicated at the time, so I remember it vividly, Tom said. It was probably the biggest internet firestorm of the year. The artist gained millions of followers overnight. Police across the country received reports. People scoured the comic for clues, trying to piece together the hidden real-life prototype. Finally, a hacker stepped in and doxed the artist's IP, which is what drew everyone's attention to Floral River County. The incident reached the higher-ups, who immediately dispatched an investigation team. The final findings caused a massive earthquake among the nation's elite. Even the Wood family took a significant hit. Memories flooded back, and Tom's expression darkened. When that happened, the orphanage Cole was in, it wasn't the same one, right? Derek cut him off. According to my investigation, Cole's orphanage was so dilapidated it rarely took in healthy orphans. Most were disabled children. Most importantly, after locating Cole, I had a video call with Director Sunny. He is absolutely not the kind of person who would participate in that kind of trafficking. Hearing this, Tom relaxed his shoulders, letting out a long breath of relief. But Derek wasn't finished. With a personality like Cole's, it clearly wasn't formed in a normal environment. I suspect there's a flaw in the investigation report I received, he said coldly. I'm gonna have someone investigate it again. He then glanced at Tom. You had a sudden schedule change today, didn't you? Continue with your business trip tomorrow as planned. Leave the matters at home to me. Tom nodded, started the car, and headed toward the Wood mansion. 2 days later, the item Cole had been waiting for arrived. The delivery guy was sweating profusely under the scorching sun, while Cole sat lazily in the shade holding an iced water, looking spaced out. Someone once told him he was like a dandelion suited only for the wilderness. A gust of wind could scatter him across the world, and when the wind stopped, he could take root anywhere. Though he despised that poetic nonsense, the person who said it understood him too well, making it hard for him to ignore their words. So he felt a bit uncertain whether he could truly find the nutrients he needed on this gold-plated land, and if he could finally live a happy, fulfilling life, just like he had yearned for all these years. He leaned against the tree, lost in thought. Will my blood relatives in this Wood family actually meet my expectations? Just then, a figure approached. Max, holding a parasol, said, Brother, I heard yesterday Chloe Sterling took you to the Sterling family's private estate. Even Quinn Blake has never been allowed there. You'd better be careful not to get targeted for revenge. Brother, are you ready to get engaged to Chloe? Even though her background and abilities are flawless, she's a lot of trouble. Max sighed. Honestly, if she hadn't gotten into that car accident, everything would have been fine. Then you wouldn't have even needed to come back. Hearing this, Cole chuckled. If you're trying to say that Mom and Dad only brought me back so you wouldn't have to suffer the grievance of marrying a disabled woman, you can leave now. Max acted like he didn't hear it. People in our social circle are saying you're a jinx for making Mom move out of the main house, but I defended you. You don't have to thank me though. The delivery guy finished moving the stuff. Cole strode toward the iron gates, but Max kept trailing behind him, nagging incessantly. Right, brother. I came over today to see Mom. We spend time together, like this every week, sometimes learning to cook. Do you want to join us? As soon as he finished, Cole stopped dead in his tracks. He saw the mocking, triumphant smile on Max's face. Max was expecting to see Cole furious and jealous. But when Max met Cole's eyes that were as freezing as ever, his smile stiffened. The very next second, the villa's iron gates slammed shut right in his face. Max was stunned. He demanded, What is the meaning of this? Cole didn't answer. He just gave him one last look. Watching Cole turn and walk away, Max slowly formed a twisted smile. You're the one locking me out from seeing Mom. Perfect. Thank you for handing me this opportunity on a silver platter. He sneered and closed his parasol. After going inside, Cole sat on the sofa, staring at the figure standing motionless under the blazing sun outside the iron gates. Minutes and seconds ticked by. Max was starting to feel dizzy. The sun was beating down relentlessly, soaking his clothes and hair in sweat. Occasionally he'd glance at Cole, who remained unmoving behind the floor-to-ceiling glass doors. Max thought hazily, Do not come out and let me in, just keep watching like that. Best if you wait until I get heatstroke and pass out right here. When his vision had almost completely blurred, an involuntary, subtle fear suddenly gripped Max's heart. I'm not actually going to die out here, am I? How can he just calmly stand there and watch? Can a normal person tell this is a guilt trip tactic? He hasn't even left the living room to pretend he doesn't know. Is he really not afraid of Mom and Dad's wrath? Or is he actually hoping I die so he can be rid of me? Under the brutal sun, Max couldn't help but shudder. At this point, he just wanted to pass out quickly, until he heard the faint sound of a door opening nearby, followed by the screech of a car braking. Max's lips curled into a smile, and he finally let himself succumb to the darkness. A minute prior, Fiona had stretched and walked downstairs. She had slept incredibly well during her afternoon nap. When she came down, she saw Cole staring blankly from the sofa. Following his gaze outside, her pupils shrank. Is that Max? Cole let out an Fiona's voice went dry. How long has he been standing there? Cole coldly checked his watch. 2.5 hours. Fiona bolted for the door, bumping into the coffee table and losing a slipper in the process. When the villa door flew open, a wave of sweltering heat hit her face. Fiona couldn't hold back. She screamed, Max! In absolute agony. At that exact moment, the figure trembled and collapsed backward. At the same time, Ruby's car stopped in front of the house. She hurriedly picked the boy up. It's so hot! Is this a fever or heat stroke? What the hell happened? Fiona's lips trembled. She instinctively grabbed Ruby's arm, looking utterly helpless. Ruby pursed her lips, carrying Max and striding into the villa. The family doctor arrived quickly. After an exam, he confirmed Max had heat stroke. The doctor frowned. You all are far too careless. Young Master Max's constitution is already weak, You absolutely cannot let this happen again. Fiona sat on the sofa, continuously applying ice packs. Max. Hearing this, she just hung her head in silence. Dr. Liam couldn't help but shoot Cole a look, pouting his lips in disdain. But the next second he was pinned in place by a pair of pitch-black pupils that stared precisely into the depths of his eyes. Just one look, and it felt like his inner thoughts had been x-rayed. But Cole didn't care. He shifted his gaze away a second later. Dr. Liam froze for 3 seconds, his fingers twitching slightly, before scurrying away like he was fleeing a crime scene. With the outsider gone, only the Wood family members remained in the villa. The massive space fell into a profound silence. Cole didn't speak. Fiona didn't dare to. Ruby finally couldn't take it anymore. She grabbed Cole's wrist and violently dragged him out of the room. Fiona watched them go and tried to call out, but ultimately just turned her head away, looking at the still unconscious Max. A single tear finally fell. Cole was roughly shoved away, almost tripping and falling to the floor. He looked up at Ruby. "What do you think you're doing, Smack?" A sharp slap cut off his sentence. Ruby spoke coldly. "What am I doing? I should be asking what you are doing. I know you hate Max. Everyone in the Wood family tolerates and understands that. But that doesn't mean we tolerate you abusing him like this. Do you want him dead?" Cole lightly touched his cheek, his thoughts stalling for a moment before he replied slowly. "In fact, he wanted to die himself. If it were you locked outside under the blazing sun, would you choose to leave? Or would you just stand there forever? Who doesn't know he was using a guilt trip tactic?" Ruby sneered. "Even if you know it's a guilt trip, once it endangers his life, even if there's only a 1% chance, you should stop it! So you're saying even if he's seeking death, the one at fault is the bystander? Me?" Ruby gritted her teeth. "He is not a stranger. He is the son our parents raised for 20 years. The little brother Tom and I have called brother for 20 years. Do you know how long 20 years is? Even if we raised a dog, it would be family by now. Not to mention he is 10,000 times more obedient and well-behaved than you." Cole touched his face, tilting his head. "Does that have anything to do with me?" Ruby's pupils shrank. She was speechless. Cole stared at her. "I told you yesterday, without my permission no one enters this house, and you all agreed. I'm just enforcing my own rules, which you people broke on day one." Ruby stepped forward, gripping his shoulders tightly. "Are you out of your mind? This is a human life. No matter how much you hate or despise him, you cannot." Cole interrupted her. "If he doesn't even value his own life, what right do you have to force me to value it for him? In your logic, his suicidal stunt is more normal than my inaction. Or did you genuinely mistake me for a good Samaritan?" Ruby fell silent for a long time. The grip on his shoulders tightened. "Do you know who suffers the most when you act like this, Mom? She's been trying so hard to get close to you, to make up for lost time and love you. Yesterday she didn't hesitate to choose you over the Wood family. But what did you show her today?" Cole's eyes wavered slightly. "You forced her to witness her 2 sons slaughtering each other. Do you have any idea how cruel that is to a mother? Do you truly understand?" Under the blazing halo of the sun, Ruby stood in the scorching heat and said, "With temperatures this high, can you even imagine standing here for 2.5 hours? As soon as she said that, Ruby realized something was off. She had only been standing there for a few minutes and was already burning up. But Cole showed zero reaction. His skin was even cold to the touch. This time Cole spoke first. "Is this considered high temperature? In Floral River County, the average summer temperature is 40 degrees Celsius, 104 Fahrenheit. The orphanage had no AC and no electric fans." He let out a soft laugh. 2.5 hours? I existed in that kind of heat for 17 summers. How do you calculate that?" He forcefully shoved Ruby's hands off his shoulders. Then, holding his cheek, he stared intently at the woman in front of him. "You hit me. The last time I was hit was 10 years ago." Ruby's fingers twitched. Her brain was screaming that she did nothing wrong, but a different emotion surged in her heart, making the fingertips that had just struck him tingle numbly. Cole stepped forward, looking slightly up at her. "I should demand a tenfold payback, but since we share blood, I'll let it slide. But this is the only time. Don't you ever lay a hand on me again, Ruby Wood? I didn't come here to beg for your charity of familial love. You have no right to stand on some moral high ground and lecture me." With that, he turned and walked straight into the villa. As he passed the sofa, he paused briefly. Fiona still hadn't looked up. He stared at her back and said flatly, "When he wakes up, tell him to get the hell out of here. And also, if there's a next time, I will make the exact same choice. Tell him, if he's not afraid of dying, he's welcome to try again." Fiona shuddered. Cole didn't look back, walking straight upstairs. On the sofa, the person who had actually been awake for a while could no longer pretend. Max slowly opened his eyes. Meeting Fiona's worried gaze, he asked softly, "Mom, are you really planning to stay here forever? Does this mean from now on, I can't even see you once in a while?" Fiona held his hand without speaking. Tears fell silently onto Max's face. Just then, Ruby walked in from the door, catching Max's tearful look. "Sister, thank you earlier. I almost thought I was really going to die." Ruby first helped Fiona sit up, then looked coldly down at Max. "If that's the case, why did you stand outside for so long?" I thought brother would definitely open the door." Tears streamed down like a waterfall. Ruby remained entirely unmoved. She even smiled slightly. "He clearly embarrassed you to death at the party, yet you still thought he'd show you goodwill? Max, I never realized until now. You really are someone who repays malice with virtue." Max's smile stiffened. Panic began to set in, accompanied by a sudden resentment towards Ruby. He unconsciously grabbed Fiona's hand. Mom, I was just so emotional at the time. I wasn't thinking straight. Please come home with me. I'll beg Granny to let brother stay. I'm so scared. At the very least, don't live alone with him. Let Big Brother or Ruby move in with you. Fiona gave Max a puzzled look. Max avoided her gaze, looking down and clutching his shirt. It's not that I want to speak ill of him, but I think his personality is very dangerous. I know I'm just an adopted son and have no right to say these things, but I can't help worrying about you. You know how Granny is. Her temper isn't great, but she truly loves us grandchildren. Yet brother came back and made her faint twice, and you moved out because of it. I'm truly, truly terrified. He looked up, his face bathed in tears. It's not that I'm afraid you guys won't want me anymore. I'm just afraid that my happy home of 20 years will be shattered because of this. Before this, we were so happy. I wanted to share this happiness with brother. But why is it so hard? Those words struck Fiona's mind like a bolt of lightning. She sat frozen for a long time. Then she gently patted Max's head. Max, Mom has made you suffer grievances. Hearing this, Max looked up with eyes full of hope. Are you agreeing to come back with me? Fiona paused, then shook her head. Max was utterly disappointed. But Mom, I'm really worried. That is exactly why Mom needs to stay by his side to understand him. I need to understand why his personality turned out this way. Fiona smiled, a hint of sorrow in her voice. Max, you are a good boy. I'm very grateful for your understanding, and I appreciate your desire to accept Cole and to have him accept you. But Max, she sighed melancholically, Cole should have been at the Wood family to experience those 20 years of happiness too. Max froze as if hit by a freeze ray. Even the pitiful look in his eyes turned to ice. Fiona gave a bitter smile. Just consider Mom a foolish, confused mother, facing a rebellious child and choosing to protect him instead of disciplining him. I really am useless, but this is the only way I can think of. She stood up. Max, I'll have your sister take you home. Unless it's something important, don't come here anymore. Cole really does have a huge grudge against you. Even if you get hurt because of him, it's very hard for Mom to get justice for you. So please protect yourself. Max almost couldn't believe his ears. His mouth twitched uncontrollably. Mom, what do you mean? I mean, right now, I'm just a useless mother trying her hardest to win the favor of her youngest son. Kids, she glanced at Ruby. If you truly want what's best for Mom, stop coming here and causing more chaos. With that, she walked straight upstairs. Max sat in a daze for a long time before looking at Ruby in absolute shock. Sister, Mom, she. But Ruby was even more shocked than he was. Back when I was going through my rebellious phase, she never said things like that. Talk about double standards. Did you hear? The third son of the Wood family, the one who humiliated Quinn Blake, forced Max to stand in the sun until he passed out today. I heard Aunt Fiona had a massive fight with the old lady. Not only did she move Cole out of the main house, but she also demanded a divorce from CEO Wood. This new third son is absolutely unhinged. Is there no one who can control him? Where are Tom and Ruby? Aren't those two super capable? How can they not handle a newcomer? News of Cole had once again flooded River City's high society group chats. Derek and Tom naturally knew the new developments at home, but neither said a word. Derek even issued a strict gag order at the main mansion, forbidding anyone from telling Granny Wood about Max fainting. With his order, Aunt Brenda didn't dare utter a peep despite her dissatisfaction. As for Max, the moment he returned to the main house, he received a call from Derek. Don't let the relationship between your grandmother and Cole deteriorate any further. Other than genuinely making your grandmother sick with anger, it won't have any actual impact on Cole, Derek stated bluntly over the phone. I assume you don't want to completely lose your grandmother as a backer, right? Max gripped his phone so hard, his knuckles turned white. He gritted his teeth, holding back tears. Dad, why are you treating me like this? Is bloodline really that important? It can make you treat me like a stranger overnight? If it were before, Max would never have dared to speak to him like this. He was spoiled since childhood, and after being scolded by Derek for making mistakes a few times, he never dared to raise his voice in front of him. This was probably the first time in years Max practically bawled into the phone. I've called you Dad for 20 years. I've truly been your son for 20 years. Yet you and him have barely met a few times, and you're threatening me because of him? Rather than a threat, consider it a piece of advice. Derek didn't show an ounce of sympathy on the other end of the line. His tone was perfectly calm. Like you said, even if the blood is fake, 20 years of living together isn't. That is precisely why I hope you can have a happy future. You're this biased towards Cole, yet you say you want me to be happy? Do you know heatstroke can kill people? Max sobbed hysterically. Dad, do you know what I was thinking before I passed out today? I thought, if I just die like this, it would be great. Then I wouldn't have to live in fear of everyone anymore. And the pain, I was so incredibly uncomfortable. From childhood until now, I've never suffered like that. After a long pause, a heavy sigh came from the other end. The fact that you can still say these things to my face proves you still hold on to boundless hope. Hope that I, and even the entire Wood family, will choose you and discard Cole. I don't. Whether you do or not, start changing your mindset right now, Max. That is never going to happen. At least, as long as I am around, the Wood family will absolutely not make that choice. Derek's voice didn't waver. So snap out of it. Coexist peacefully with him and let him coexist peacefully with your grandmother. That is the only way you can regain peace in the Wood family. If you can't do that, at the very least, don't cause trouble, otherwise the only one who pays the price in the end will be you. Why? Max even forgot to cry, muttering, "Why treat me like this? Why are you so ruthless? The only ruthless one is me." Max, change your mindset now, and you can continue being the pampered young master of the Wood family. Derek swiftly ended the call, leaving one final sentence, "Don't break your mother's heart." The line went dead. Max stared at his phone for a long time before slowly turning to Ruby in the driver's seat. "Sister, the one breaking mom's heart, isn't that Cole?" Ruby looked at his face. For years she was used to her little brother's obedient or slightly arrogant demeanor. This was the first time she had seen him cry in such absolute despair. Her previous anger softened significantly. She pulled some tissues and handed them over, slowly looking away. "You both broke mom's heart, but towards Cole mom holds an endless amount of guilt. Like you said, you've been happy for 20 years. You want to share that happiness with Cole. But that happiness should have belonged to Cole in the first place. You only got it because of a mix-up. Compared to you, who knows where Cole grew up to develop a personality like this? Of course it breaks her heart more." Max had an epiphany. Endless regret flashed in his eyes. "I shouldn't have said that," he thought bitterly. "I only cared about evoking mom's memories and forgot that these are exactly the things Cole didn't have. I ended up helping him play the victim card. So unlucky. But," Max lowered his head and whispered, "if he can develop such an arrogant personality, doesn't that prove he lived pretty well over the past 20 years? If no one enabled him, how could he turn out like this?" Ruby couldn't answer. She just told him to wipe his tears. "All right, enough. Your health is already bad. Thinking too much will only make it worse. Go get some sleep." The two entered the Wood mansion one after another. At the same time, Derek hung up the phone and looked up, taking in the building before him. "Floral Box," he muttered the 3 words. Inside, an old man with graying hair walked out. Derek adjusted his tie, strode forward and extended a hand with unprecedented respect. "You must be Director Sunny. I've looked forward to meeting you. I am Cole's biological father, Derek Wood." The CEO of River City bent slightly before the much shorter old man, speaking calmly and sincerely. "You can just call me Derek." Unexpectedly, the kind and polite-looking old director didn't reciprocate immediately. The eyes hidden behind his reading glasses first assessed Derek from head to toe, then let out a scoff. "You're late. A father like you. I'm afraid you won't earn Eleven's trust in this lifetime." Derek, having just straightened up, felt a sudden verbal blow. His normally calm heart skipped a beat. The secretary behind him frowned secretly. The sharp gaze shot toward this arrogant old director. Having followed the boss for years, this was the first time he had heard someone speak to him so harshly. Even knowing the purpose of this trip was to investigate the third young master's past, and a father humbling himself for his child is natural. Why did the director sound like the third young master was the one in the superior position? Ridiculous. But Director Sunny didn't continue that topic. He patted the heads of 2 kids hiding behind him, then looked toward the guard booth. "Want to go inside and take a look? 11 used to love hanging out in there." Derek was taken aback, but the 2 kids suddenly got excited. "Is 11 coming back, Grandpa? When is 11 coming back? I have a drawing I want to show him." Director Sunny ruffled their hair. "Didn't I tell you? 11 probably won't be back for a very long time." "Then when will he be back?" The kids looked visibly disappointed. "I still want him to teach me calligraphy." "Well, that depends on what kind of person this Mr. here is." Following Director Sunny's words and gaze, the kids looked up at Derek. Director Sunny looked straight into Derek's eyes, smiling with a sigh. "If this Mr. is a good father, then it might be a very long time before 11 returns. But if this Mr. isn't a good father, then 11 might be back very soon." The kids blinked in confusion. Then together they grabbed Derek's pant legs. "Mister, can you be a bad father? We want 11 to come back." Before CEO Wood could figure out how to deal with these bold kids, Director Sunny shooed them away. Watching their small figures run off hand in hand, Derek said, "The kids really seem to like Cole." Director Sunny laughed heartily. "Of course! Every kid in this orphanage loves him." Derek was silent for a moment, then said, "It seems there's a massive difference between his time here and his time at the Wood family." Director Sunny paused, then suddenly threw his head back and laughed. "Don't tell me you thought he was an obedient, well-behaved kid here? The perfect older brother in their hearts, isn't he? Of course not. 11 isn't the type to change who he is to fit his environment." Director Sunny looked at the empty field where the kids had vanished and jutted his chin. "Those 2 kids just now? The one learning calligraphy from him? Within a year he made that kid cry no less than 10 times with his harsh critiques. Kids like that are everywhere in this orphanage. You could say there isn't a single kid here who hasn't been brought to tears by him." Derek and Secretary Feng looked at the old man. His face clearly showed pride. For a moment, neither knew what to say. "You mentioned earlier, Cole liked staying in the guard booth?" "That's right." Director Sunny led him toward it. "Actually, we didn't have a guard booth initially. Later we got funding to improve the facilities, and that's when it was built. But it was abandoned after a few years. Since then, 11 just loved sneaking in there." Inside the tiny guard booth was a large window offering a view of the cars and pedestrians outside the gate. Stepping through the narrow doorway, Derek was instantly stunned. The booth looked tiny and run down from the outside. Inside, A delicate writing desk, matching the window's height, sat next to a spacious, soft, albeit old sofa. The interior was clean and tidy, as if someone lived there every day, but the most captivating thing wasn't any of that. The most astonishing thing was the endless expanse of flowers blooming across the peeling walls. They were so lifelike that for a split second he had the illusion he had genuinely stepped into a forest of flowers. When he snapped back to reality and looked closely, he realized they were all drawings, not painted with acrylics or spray paint, but drawn with colored pencils. From the floor to the ceiling, just out of reach, countless types of flowers intertwined, seeming to sway in the wind, blooming endlessly in this cramped space. It made you feel like you could hear the breeze rustling through them. 11 drew all of these. Director Sunny walked to the desk, bending down to pull an old notebook from a drawer. After this place was abandoned, 11 volunteered as the security guard for a while. He was in charge of registering the names and phone numbers of outsiders visiting the orphanage. Let me find it. He flipped through the notebook and held it up, pointing at the lines of writing. Here, starting from this spot. He handled the entire second half of the book. It was during this time that he turned the inside into this. Scared the living daylights out of me. Derek took the notebook. On the yellowing pages, names and phone numbers were written in various colored pencils, page after page, seemingly endless. Yet for some reason Derek didn't stop flipping. Amidst the rustling of paper, it was as if he could truly see a small boy sitting by the wide window, handing a notebook and pencil to everyone walking through the gate. Please register your name and phone number. Thank you. The wind carried the scent of flowers through the window, flipping the notebook pages. The rustling sound, like ocean waves, drowned out the phantom figure in the morning sun. Derek closed the notebook and suddenly asked, "Can I have this notebook?" Director Sunny froze, then smiled and shook his head. "You clearly have plenty of time to create your own memories with him. Leave these little trinkets for an old man like me." He took the notebook back and carefully placed it in the drawer. Every mark 11 left in Floral Box is precious. Even the kids voluntarily protect and clean everything he left behind. Don't say things like that in the future, or the kids will get anxious. Let's go. We'll talk in my office. Floral Box wasn't always called Floral Box. On the way to the director's office, the old man and Derek chatted. This place used to be called Blue Sky Orphanage. After we got funding, we had a chance to rename it. The name Floral Box was 11's idea. The old man walked with his hands behind his back, greeting the kids running around, chuckling. I still remember that day clearly. Some reporters came for an interview and they brought up renaming the orphanage. The cameras were ready to capture the kids playing innocently under the shade. Look, right there. Director Sunny pointed to a towering pear tree. It was spring. The pear blossoms were in full bloom. The other kids were racking their brains for a name, tossing out endless ideas. Only 11 seemed uninterested, sitting in a corner tinkering with who knows. Right when everyone was about to start a massive argument, someone asked him. He looked up and said, "Don't call it an orphanage. This is my home in a flower box. Just call it Floral Box." He held up a wooden box he had in his hands and opened the lid. The wind and sun swept past, carrying countless pinkish-white petals, blowing them all over his head and face before drifting off toward the distant hillside. A box full of flowers. Someone laughed and pinched his nose. Comparing yourself to a flower? Little 11 has no shame. You're the shameless one. I just like the name. The boy dodged the large hand, falling back onto the grass. The petals he had collected for who knows how long kept flying out of the wooden box, catching the sunlight on his hair and cheeks, before being swept into the sky by the next gust of wind. I didn't expect that image to still be so vivid. The director stared fondly at the tree, paused for a moment, then led Derek around the corner. It felt as though another strong gust of wind had blown, yet everyone's clothes remained perfectly still. It wasn't until Secretary Feng gasped in shock that Derek realized something and turned his head. The image from the director's memory materialized before his eyes, a wall bathed in sunlight. Within the wall, the wind howled, an endless sea of flowers bloomed, and a clear sky was filled with dancing petals. Even though Derek had attended countless auctions and judged top-tier exhibitions with a critical eye, this was undeniably a masterpiece worthy of renown. There might be many people in the world who paint seas of flowers, but to make every flower, every gust of wind pulse with such vibrant life, making it hard to distinguish illusion from reality at first glance, those artists could be counted on one hand. Such an incredible painting was casually imprinted on a cracked old wall, yet the old director and the kids didn't even slow their pace when walking past it. It showed that the painting had completely integrated into this place, becoming a presence as familiar as breathing to them. Noticing they had slowed down, the director turned his head. Forgot to mention 11 painted this too. To prove his name was the best, that kid painted flowers all over the orphanage. You can't tell from the outside, but anyone who has been here knows. Our floral box is literally a box filled with flowers. Swish. The director pushed open his office window and sat down on the guest sofa. Now let's chat. You suddenly showing up here unannounced. What do you want to know? Derek sat opposite him, looking at the empty teapot, and said flatly, Everything about Cole's past." The old director snorted coldly. "You didn't come when you found out his identity, you waited until now. Did 11 cause some trouble at your house that you can't handle?" "There is nothing in the Wood family I cannot handle. I just realized his upbringing might have been extraordinary, so I wanted to learn more. Actually, you just feel you can't control the kid, right? The old director didn't mince words. If Eleven's behavior was completely normal, you wouldn't have bothered making this trip, am I right? I don't deny it. If Cole were a child I could see through immediately, I could imagine how he grew up without coming here. What an arrogant father. The director first showed dissatisfaction, but then a sly smile appeared. But unfortunately, 11 and the word normal are polar opposites. Let alone a stranger like you who's only known him a few days. Even I, who raised him for over a decade, wouldn't dare say I completely understand him. Over a decade? Derek raised an eyebrow. Didn't you pick him up when he was in swaddling clothes? The old director, who had been grumpy and critical this whole time, suddenly dropped his smile. After a long silence, he said in a low voice, I was the one who found him, but I wasn't here the whole time. When he was about 6 or 7, my son passed away. I suffered a huge blow, resigned as director, and moved to another city with my wife. I didn't come back until 3 years later. The old director slowly hunched his stooped body, covering his face. That is the decision I regret most in my life. Before I left, little 11 could communicate normally and was perfectly healthy. But when I came back, he was emaciated, barely looking human, and completely refused to communicate with anyone. Derek's pupils violently contracted. The news about Floral Box Orphanage flashed through his mind. For a moment, he almost stood up in shock. Thankfully, the old director noticed his reaction and quickly clarified, it's not what you're thinking. It had nothing to do with that scandal. With his heart still pounding, Derek suppressed his dizziness and forced himself to stay calm. Please continue. It was the typical bullying you see in orphanages. The old director looked bitter. Mr. Wood, you should know that people who are too unique in a crowd usually receive one of two treatments. Either everyone surrounds them, or they are completely isolated. And what little 11 experienced during those 3 years was the latter. But he is someone who holds a grudge and refuses to yield. If someone bullied him, he would retaliate in exactly the same way, or even tenfold. But 11 is too smart. His methods of revenge, in the eyes of the director at the time, turned him into a literal little monster. So in the end, it wasn't just the kids. Even the director and teachers treated him as someone they could bully at will. No matter how smart he was still just a child. One side was the entire orphanage. The other side was 11, who absolutely refused to bow his head. This war lasted for 3 years. By the time I came back, 11 had become completely closed off, unable to communicate. The laughter of children playing downstairs sounded distant, as if from another lifetime. In the glaring afternoon sun streaming through the window, Derek sat in silence, like a statue frozen in time. That's all I can tell you about those 3 years. I don't know the specifics. I came back too late. What else? Did his condition improve after you returned? At least he wasn't bullied anymore, right? Director Sunny smiled bitterly. It took me a very, very long time to get him to call me Grandpa again. Derek remembered something. He said he beat you into a concussion before he called you Grandpa. The director froze. That little brat. Why did he mention that? He touched his thinning hair, looking a bit embarrassed. Well, I never had any elder authority in front of him anyway. When he was little, he loved pulling my beard, so I stopped growing one. Derek leaned forward slightly. It seems he put you through a lot. It's not your turn to play the parent yet. The director looked displeased again. When I was cleaning up his messes, you didn't even know he existed. Derek had nothing to say to that. The old man quickly slumped his shoulders, rubbing his nose. But then again, I have no right to lecture you. If you call me his family, I was highly negligent too. Besides those 3 years I was gone. When he was 14, I let him run away from home once. For a whole year. I looked for him for a year, couldn't find him. In the end, he came back on his own. Derek stayed at Floral Box for the night. This was not on the itinerary. He had originally booked a first-class flight back to River City tonight because of a company meeting tomorrow morning. But everything he heard in the director's office today was too astonishing. By the time he snapped out of it, he told Secretary Feng to cancel the meeting. Should I book a hotel then? Floral Box County only has one 5-star hotel, and the facilities aren't great. I'm afraid you won't be satisfied. We'll need to hire a premium cleaning service to prep it first. Secretary Feng was already looking up services on his phone. Don't let Derek's calm, untouchable CEO persona fool you. He was notoriously picky about his living arrangements. He had 3 lifestyle assistants on rotation, and their notebooks detailing his habits were practically encyclopedias. Yet, this very same Derek Wood stood under the dilapidated eaves of the orphanage, looking up at the falling dusk, and suddenly said, "No need, I'm staying here tonight." Secretary Feng, despite his extreme professionalism, couldn't hide his utter shock. Are you sure, sir? The conditions here are probably... Derek turned to look at Director Sunny, who had just walked out. Can I stay here for a night? The director paused, stroked his non-existent beard, and reluctantly nodded. Derek pushed his luck. Then can I take a walk around the orphanage tonight? The director huffed, stomping off like an angry old ox without saying a word. I'll take that as a yes, Derek muttered. He sent Secretary Feng back and began his solo exploration of Floral Box. That night, all 4 members of the Wood family had trouble sleeping. Derek was busy exploring the orphanage in the dark, getting 0 sleep. Ruby kept jerking awake from nightmares filled with the sound of slaps. Fiona tossed and turned in the next room, alternating between crying and smiling. Tom lay in his hotel bed in another city, hands behind his head, thinking about the chaos at home today. He didn't manage to catch any sleep until the early hours of the morning. Ironically, the fuse of this insomnia alliance, you hit the pillow and went straight to sleep. Not a single dream. The next day, to apologize, Ruby took you to her company for a visit. She was a top-tier star, but the only gossip you knew about her was that she trended constantly for breaking up with her boyfriend Quinn. So, while eating lunch at the company, you took the opportunity to interrogate her assistant, Lily, about it. Why do they keep breaking up and getting back together? Lily looked awkward, chewing on her chopsticks. After a long while, she said slowly, "You have to keep this a secret. Don't tell Sister Ruby I told you." You enthusiastically nodded in agreement. Lily spilled the tea in detail. Quinn knew Ruby's background from the start, but the glittering status of the second young miss of the Wood family brought no benefits to their relationship. Instead, it made Quinn feel insecure. Although the Wood parents were open-minded, they were still orthodox wealthy elites. While they didn't stop their kids from dating freely, they absolutely did not support Ruby marrying an actor. So, even though Ruby dated with the goal of marriage, her parents refused to officially meet Quinn. It wasn't malicious humiliation or disdain. It was the natural attitude of adults towards children, the inherent disregard of the wealthy towards ordinary people. I know you're serious and invested right now, so I won't stop you. But if you want to finalize your life partner at this moment, it's unrealistic. Wait a few years. If you two are still dead set on getting married, then come talk to me. Until then, there is absolutely no need to meet. Just that one message led to their first breakup. After that, Ruby spent a ton of effort chasing him back. But that wasn't the end. The Wood family's immovable stance was a constant barrier, causing Quinn to demand a breakup time and time again, only for Ruby to stubbornly win him back every time. They had probably gotten used to it, Lily continued. Actually, midway through, Sister Ruby couldn't take it anymore and had a massive fight with her family. She even threatened to cut ties. You suddenly looked up, eyes sparkling. Ran away from home? And then what? Lily was startled by your sudden enthusiasm. She stammered. Then Brother Quinn took her in. That was probably their sweetest time, but eventually the eldest young master met with Sister Ruby once, and she went back home. What a brocon, you muttered to yourself. There's more, Lily went on. Sister Ruby going back had already pushed their relationship to the freezing point, but then, the third young master of the family, Max, went to find Quinn and said some really vicious things. Quinn broke up with Sister Ruby again. To this day, Lily vividly remembered that scene. The young master of the Wood family, dressed in casual yet obscenely expensive clothes, stood haughtily in front of Quinn and spoke with an unbearable dismissive attitude. My parents and sister are polite adults who don't want to hurt you, Mr. Blake. But I thought you were a mature adult who understood how the real world works. Seeing you drag this out with my sister for years, I realize I was mistaken. But that's fine. If you don't understand, I'll spell it out for you. Mr. Blake, do you know where my sister's starting line is? Max stood before Quinn, who was already a major star, and adjusted the lapel of Quinn's sponsored suit. My sister's starting line is the position you exhausted your entire life to reach in the entertainment industry. But the clothes you wear still aren't as expensive as what our maids wear. I'm sure you make a lot of money now. Right? But the car you drive is worse than the one our auntie uses to go grocery shopping. As for the standard of the male friends surrounding my sister since childhood, I don't think you'd even comprehend it if I told you. In short, it's a height where, even if you reach the pinnacle of the entertainment industry, you only qualify to stand before them and sing and dance for their amusement. As for my sister, no matter how passionate she is about acting, she will never become a monkey performing alongside you. She will always be the VIP sitting in the front row, indifferently watching you perform. Have you understood yet, Mr. Blake? Or must you pretend not to understand, dragging her from the audience onto the stage to play the monkey with you, just to fulfill this so-called love of yours? You sat there, jaw-dropping, spoon dangling from your mouth. Max could actually say something that articulate? Those words didn't sound like the dialogue the Max you knew could produce. Did his original personality completely collapse the moment he learned of your existence? Did he just get dumber? Lily was also a bit stunned. Is that your only reaction? What else should it be? Don't you think Quinn is pitiful? Lily sighed. If it weren't for the Wood family, they wouldn't have had so many hurdles. She looked like a hardcore shipper, visibly deflating as she talked about it. Because of that, Master Max got scolded horribly by Sister Ruby. But it didn't fix anything. Since then, Quinn smiles a lot less. Even though they broke up and got back together a few times after that, I always feel like he never truly recovered from Master Max's words. That's why he always lives in pain. How bizarre. If it's really that painful, why not just break up permanently? But Sister Ruby refuses to let go. And Quinn? Does he still love her? Of course. If they love each other so much, why can't they just stay firmly together? Didn't the Wood family say wait a few years and they'd get a chance? But that's just an empty promise. Just look at their refusal to meet. They're not going to agree. Then why not cleanly break up? Lily was about to lose her mind. Disregarding the fact that you were her boss's brother, she pulled at her hair. Stop messing with me. I'm not messing with you. I'm genuinely curious. Lily didn't know how to respond. After a long while she mumbled, love isn't that simple. I don't know how complex it has to be for two people to break up countless times and still wallow in pain. I only know this. If there is someone in this world who makes me fall in love, then even if the whole world objects, curses and criticizes us, I absolutely would not blink an eye. If I loved someone, I would never give up for any reason. Whoever causes her to misunderstand me, I would at least make absolutely sure she never thinks I don't love her enough. If I love someone, even if I have to suffer endless torment, I will definitely make her feel happy. So, breaking up and getting back together like that for years, ultimately, it's just because they don't love each other enough. They'd rather wallow in prolonged pain than make a clean break, but they also lack the courage to stand firmly together. It's pure self-masochism. Lily was stunned by your manifesto. It took her a long time to mumble, "Hearing your speech makes me kinda want to date you." "Sorry, I'm afraid you'd have a hard time making me fall in love," you said with full regret. Lily snapped back to reality, feeling instantly embarrassed. "Sorry, I misspoke. I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean you're not good enough, but I have a bit of an issue." Lily was very curious about what your issue was, but you had no intention of continuing. After lunch, the day sped by. You continued to follow Ruby on her schedule for a few days. During a variety show recording, you unexpectedly ran into an old acquaintance. It was the Go champion, Tara. Even Derek was a fan of hers. The woman under the black umbrella smiled. "Why aren't you looking up at me? Or did you get a new sister and toss all the old ones aside?" Triggered by the keyword, Ruby immediately looked at Tara, her face reflexively forming the polite smile of a top star. "Miss Tara knows my brother?" Tara chuckled. "Your brother?" She turned back to you. "You actually have a biological sister? Don't tell me you have biological parents too?" Ruby could hear the provocation and bone-chilling malice in her tone. She dropped her polite smile. "It seems Miss Tara and my brother have quite a bit of history." "History? I suppose you could call it a cursed destiny instead," the woman smirked. "Otherwise, why wouldn't he even dare to look me in the eye until now?" "Right, Colwood?" At this, you let out a long breath and looked up, staring right at her. "Who says I don't dare look at you?" Before Ruby could intervene, Tara leaned in close to your face. "Then why didn't you remember your big sister? It's been years after all. Do you still hate me that much? Or do you not want to look at this face and be reminded of her?" She tilted her head slightly toward Ruby. "Miss, has he ever called you sister?" Ruby, who was holding an umbrella for you, raised an eyebrow and smiled calmly. "If he doesn't, what else would he call me? So you broke your promise." Tara took 2 steps back, shoving her hands in her pockets and looking at you. "You said you'd only ever have one sister in this lifetime. Or do promises lose their value once the person is dead?" Hearing this, you burst out laughing. "Why are you acting like you had such a great relationship with her? Putting on a show seeking justice for her? Need me to remind you? When she was alive, how terribly did you treat her? How cold were you? How many times did she reach out with warmth only to be met with your icy shoulder? Now you come crying to me playing the good sister. Isn't that an Oscar-worthy performance?" A sudden flash of lightning ripped through the city sky, briefly illuminating Tara's pale face. Her mouth twitched as if she were smiling, but she stopped talking to you. Instead, she turned to Ruby. "You know what? Before this, we were all very curious if Cole's biological parents actually existed, because we thought a monster like him couldn't possibly be born from humans. Or if he did have a family out there, they must all be psychopaths. You should be careful. The last person Cole called sister was unalived by his own hands." The Go genius walked away with her umbrella. Her silhouette looked as solemn as if she had just attended a funeral. "Because you got caught in the rain, you went straight upstairs to shower as soon as you got home." Ruby handed Tara's autograph to Derek, who had just returned. "Cole seems to know Tara. Her attitude today was awful. She even called Cole a..." Ruby glanced at Fiona and trailed off. Fiona froze, then laughed. "What do you think I am, a fragile flower that can't take a hit? A monster?" Ruby muttered those 2 words, a dark cloud passing over her eyes. "She also said he caused someone's death, someone he used to call sister." Fiona's forced, relaxed smile instantly froze. Ruby stared intently at Derek. "Dad, did you really investigate Cole's past? What exactly did he go through?" However, Ruby didn't get an answer. Instead, Derek shooed her away to take a shower. While arranging flowers, Derek said to Fiona, "I thought you were trying to have your cake and eat it too. You're feeling uneasy, aren't you?" "I originally thought I could." Fiona leaned her head on Derek's shoulder, looking a bit sad. "But Cole keeps forcing me to choose. I can feel it. Whether it's causing a scene at the party, being disrespectful to Mom, or locking Max outside the other day, it's all intentional. He just wants to see what I'll choose. Him or Max. Then there's nothing I can do." Fiona lowered her voice, a hint of complaint in it. "I can only choose him. I've lived this long without wronging anyone, except for my poor youngest son. This is my only choice." Derek smiled softly. "After Max fainted, you didn't even scold Cole once. When I heard about that, I was very surprised. If Ruby had done that, you would have spanked her." "Because I can sense it. Cole is a very special child," Fiona mumbled. "I always feel like I can't treat him like a normal mother would, because I'm not even sure if his uniqueness is a good thing or a bad thing. What if it's bad? Then I bear some responsibility for that badness. I should shoulder it. You should shoulder it too." Fiona's tone turned a bit stubborn. "If he's a bad kid, it's our fault. So we must tolerate him, watch over him. At the very least, don't let him cause a disaster we can't clean up." "All right, Derek smiled and placed the last flower in the vase. Let's just pretend we went back 20 plus years and are first-time parents all over again. Thankfully, there's still time. At this moment, if you were there, you'd definitely laugh at his overconfidence. Over 10 years of utter isolation, unable to blend into the crowd even with countless people surrounding you. Whether they liked, hated, or despised you, you could never empathize with any of their emotions. Returning to the Wood family was nothing more than an experiment for you to try and understand this thing called emotion. The next day, your fake fiancée said she wanted to take you to the Sterling family estate. After you got in the car, she didn't say a word. So you asked her directly, "Aren't you going to brief me on the do's and don'ts of the Sterling family? At least give me a rundown of the members." "No need." Chloe turned her head and smiled. "Just perform however you want. If I mess things up, don't blame me." You gave her a preemptive shot. Chloe huffed and smiled, her eyes curving. "I'm looking forward to it." In reality, things didn't go smoothly at all. Chloe's father played the gentle gentleman, but it didn't take long for him to start grilling you. "Given your age, you're still a college student, right? Where do you study? Have you taken up a position at the Wood family company yet?" Just looking at the questions, it was a bit overbearing. But his tone was so natural and warm, it sounded like genuine concern from an elder. You thought for a moment and asked him, "To marry Chloe, is answering these mandatory? I thought just having an engagement was enough." "Of course it's not enough. It's enough to sign the papers. But if you really want to get married, we need to see what groom courses you need to take." You instantly tilted your head, wondering if you misheard. At this moment, Chloe, who had been silent, finally spoke up. "He doesn't need to take any courses. I don't want him to endure the so-called rules of the Sterling family." Chloe looked up, her voice icy. You didn't know if it was an illusion, but you felt the gentleman across from you twitch his face for a split second. After the short and unpleasant conversation ended, Chloe was casually called away by her father to discuss business, leaving you with nothing to do. You were led by a servant to tour the estate. By a man-made lake, you met the adopted daughter of the Sterling family, Daisy Sterling. You watched as the woman, who was at least 1.7 meters tall, struggled to reel in a fish. Eventually, a servant had to help her pull up a decent-sized but certainly not monstrous catfish. She was panting heavily, wiping sweat from her forehead. Right now, you felt like you were looking at a fragile Victorian heroine. Once she caught her breath, Daisy introduced herself. "I'm Daisy Sterling, a descendant of a branch family. Because of my poor health, I received support from Uncle Charles. Now I'm considered his adopted daughter. A lot of kids from the branch families have been visiting lately. You'll probably see them at dinner. Some of them are pretty annoying. But with Big Sister here, no one will dare bully you." "A lot of branch family kids have come?" You were instantly curious. "Is there some special family gathering today? Is the Sterling family that warm and loving?" "Of course not," Daisy sneered. "They're here to fight for the heir position." She dropped this bombshell so casually, you couldn't help but look at her. "The Sterling family wants to change heirs? You think it's unnecessary too, right? Even if Big Sister can never stand up again, it won't affect her ability to control the Sterling family. I really don't understand why Uncle Charles is doing this. Their relationship hasn't been the same lately." She paused, adding softly, "It makes me really worried." You suddenly asked, "You said you're the adopted daughter. Since when?" "I came to the Sterling family when I was 7 or 8. I almost died of illness back then. Uncle and Auntie took me in." She seemed to slip into a brief memory, but the official adoption only happened a few years ago. "I didn't think it made a difference, but Uncle and Big Sister both agreed, so I didn't mind." You suddenly let out a long, meaningful as if you had just discovered something fascinating. You leaned forward, resting your elbows on your knees and propping your chin on your hands. Your pitch-black eyes scrutinized Daisy. Your gaze was as cold as someone picking out a cut of pork at the butcher. "So going by that logic, you're on the backup list for heirs too, huh?" Daisy offered a bitter smile. "Stop joking with me, Mr. Wood. Even if you're worried for Big Sister, there's absolutely no need to target me. With this body of mine, living to 30 would be a miracle. How could I possibly aim for the head of the Sterling family?" She leaned back into the soft cushions, letting out a breath. "Even if they handed me that position, I'd probably die of exhaustion on day one. A massive clan like the Sterlings isn't something a sick person like me can handle." You leaned back in your chair too. Daisy's display of vulnerability seemed to dispel your earlier suspicion, but the words that came out of your mouth were utterly devoid of emotion. Human ambition has nothing to do with physical health. In this world, there are thieves and killers who are only 7 or 8 years old, and there are 80-year-old men who still lust after young girls. If you want the Sterling family, even if you were to die tomorrow, it wouldn't stop you from making moves for it today." A brief silence fell by the lake, until a gust of wind blew past and Daisy suddenly started laughing. First a soft chuckle, then a full-blown cackle, laughing until she ran out of breath. But soon the laughter turned into a violent coughing fit, escalating into extreme agony. Seeing Daisy clutching her chest, curling up in pain, her pale face distorted, you blinked and stood up, stepping closer. "Are you okay?" You gently patted her back as she heaved from the intense coughing. Just as you were about to grab your phone to call Chloe, your phone was suddenly snatched away. On reflex, you reached to grab it back, but only managed to catch Daisy's collar. At that exact moment, Daisy, with a look of absolute calm, leaned backward toward the lake. Her body weight pulled you a step forward, just as you were about to be dragged into the water with her. You didn't hesitate to let go. Splash! A massive pillar of water erupted by the lakeside. From afar came terrified screams. Instantly, a chorus of angry voices rushed toward you. Daisy fell in the water. Someone pushed her in. Murder. You looked at the chaotic figures swarming you and calmly accepted a truth. Today's invitation from the Sterling family wasn't out of curiosity or welcome. It was a vicious trap. So that's why Chloe told me to just perform however I wanted. In a room fully equipped with medical gear, the heart monitor beeped steadily. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling window at the end of the hall, Charles had his back to Chloe. He stayed silent for a long time. What do you plan to do? Do about what? Chloe's tone was indifferent, not a ripple in her voice. Charles spun around furiously, slamming his cane against the floor. You're asking me? That fiancé you chose came to the Sterling family as a guest, and on day one he pushes Daisy into the water. Don't you know Daisy's health condition? What he did is basically attempted murder. Charles rarely got this angry. The wrinkles on his forehead deepened significantly. I had heard that the newly returned third young master of the Wood family was an arrogant, lawless punk, someone who could even piss off his own grandmother, but because you liked him, I was willing to observe. But look at what he's done. His anger morphed into profound grief. He pointed a finger at Chloe. Look at you now. Daisy is the sister who grew up with you. Right now she's lying in a hospital bed, hovering between life and death, and you don't even have a shred of emotion on your face. Just because of that coal? You guys have barely known each other for a few days. Chloe just calmly looked at the man in front of her. So, what do you want? Charles spoke slowly. Cancel the engagement. You will not marry him. Meanwhile, you were sitting on the sofa in the living room, surrounded by the Branch family kids. Right now, they were all loudly criticizing you. Why did you push Daisy? Do you know you could have killed her? I heard. You're the eldest Mrs. Fiancé, right? Well, after today, you won't be anymore. Don't even try to deny it. We all saw it with our own eyes. Don't think just because Big Sister backs you up, you can have it easy. Daisy's status in the Sterling family is practically on par with Big Sister's. Say something. Why aren't you saying a word? Scared now? A finger poked your shoulder. You leaned away to dodge it. You dare dodge? The pampered kids aggressively closed in, looking like they were ready to throw hands. What are you all doing? A chilling voice came from the doorway, freezing the room. Charles walked over and sat on the sofa opposite you. Mr. Wood, out of respect for the relationship between our families, I won't call the police, but in return I hope you will voluntarily call off the engagement with Chloe. I cannot accept someone who would viciously attack a sick person as my son-in-law. I hope you understand. You stared at him in silence. You didn't even ask me if I actually pushed her, or even wait for her to wake up and ask her directly. Charles's face flashed a mocking smile. Before he could speak, the Branch family kids started clamoring again. Why should he ask? We all saw it. You pushed Daisy into the water while she was coughing. So many people saw it, how could it be fake? Do you dare claim you didn't push her? You looked up at Chloe, then withdrew your gaze and suddenly spoke. Yeah, I pushed her. In an instant, the chaotic noise in the living room fell dead silent. Charles raised an eyebrow, his expression growing even darker. It's good that the third young master admits it. Otherwise, we could have just asked Daisy when she woke up. No need to ask her. I can confess everything. You smirked slightly. But aren't you guys curious why I pushed her? You should know that before this, I had never met her. I didn't even know her name. No grudge, no enmity. Why would I do that? Charles's eye twitched. Just as he was about to say it didn't matter, someone from the Branch family crowd blurted out, Why? Because she was trash-talking Chloe, right? The room fell silent for a second before becoming even noisier. How is that possible? What nonsense are you spewing? Daisy isn't that kind of person. She and the eldest miss have a great relationship. At this point, you picked up a piece of white cake that had been sitting out for a while, took a bite, and interrupted them. Come to think of it, she didn't just trash-talk Chloe. She talked trash about all of you. She said recently a lot of Branch family kids came to the Sterling family. I thought you all loved each other and had a great relationship. But she said you guys are just a school of fish fighting for fish food. Fat and useless. Lowly bloodlines, yet daydreaming of grandeur. The moment the main house calls, you come rushing over, kissing ass and bringing gifts, wishing you could lick her uncle's shoes just to replace Chloe. She said you guys are round earthworms who will never become dragons. You only deserve to wallow in the mud and become fish food. Everyone was telling themselves that you were just spouting nonsense. But the truth hit the nail on the head. Being exposed so blatantly made many of them turn bright red. Before anyone could speak, you suddenly pointed your finger at the opposite side. You pointed straight at Charles, who had been expressionless in the distance. And you, Uncle Charles, she called you an evil old immortal. The moment your biological daughter became disabled, you couldn't wait to kick her to the curb. And you used these fish food kids without a second thought. But luckily, she said, luckily she inherited your blood, so whatever you can do, she can do too. You finished the last bite of cake and smacked your lips. Under the lights, you tilted your head innocently at Charles and said, She said she's your biological daughter. Uncle Charles. Turns out besides Chloe you have an illegitimate child? Charles, who had always remained calm while you spouted nonsense, finally had a massive change in expression. He abruptly stood up. The lighting in the halls was bright enough for everyone to see Charles breathing heavily, his chest heaving violently. It looked like he was suppressing a fire that could erupt at any second. No one had ever seen Charles like this. The Branch family members who had arrived less than half a year ago had never seen it. Even Chloe hadn't seen it. Many years ago, the high society of River City always referred to Charles as Uncle Sterling's son, CEO Sterling's husband, or Chloe's father. As the only son of who knows which generation of the Sterling family, he was a universally recognized mediocrity. No outstanding talent, no ruthless methods. Whenever this Sterling family head was mentioned, people couldn't hide their disdainful tone, until Chloe was born. Growing up with the title of a teenage genius, the title of the Sterling family head naturally shifted to Chloe's head. Before officially taking over the family, Chloe should have just been little Sterling. Just like Charles, living under his father's shadow, acting as the junior head for over 30 years without ever truly being the head for a single day. But his own daughter snatched that title right out from under him. It was like an emperor skipping the crown prince step and directly crowning the royal grandson. Back then, everyone waited to see Charles become a laughingstock, but he accepted it with extremely high grace and tolerance. In social events over the years, he displayed his gentle, humble charm. The mockery gradually faded. Now many had forgotten that Charles had gone through such a humiliating period. When people mentioned him now, they'd say he's a kind philanthropist, the most forgiving leader of a clan. But people still called him CEO Sterling. The habit of many years had become instinct. The title of head of the Sterling family, representing true power, never fell on his head. Yet he remained calm, like a man born only knowing how to smile, incapable of anger or suppressing others. Until now, seeing his violently heaving chest, a few young masters and misses showed fear. Thankfully, Charles managed to control himself. He took a few deep breaths, then opened his eyes to look at you sternly. Mr. Wood, I have no intention of taking your parents' place to discipline you. But the words you just said are not only slander against the victim, Daisy, but also an accusation against me and an extreme insult to Chloe's mother. I'm just repeating what I heard. I'm not accusing you. And I'm certainly not accusing Chloe's mother. Besides, even if Daisy was talking nonsense, she was only accusing you. What does that have to do with your late wife? You interrupted him disrespectfully, your expression completely nonchalant. Anyone could tell you lacked a proper upbringing. The veins on Charles's hand gripping the cane bulged, but he maintained a calm tone. You just arrived in River City, so perhaps you don't fully understand. My late wife and I are not like your parents in their business marriage. We married for love. There wasn't any of that cliché wealthy family drama. In this life, until the day I die, I will never betray her, not for a single minute or second. Even though she has passed, then why didn't you just die with her? You rudely interrupted again. If you loved your wife that much, why didn't you die with her? Charles froze instantly. Despite his vast experience, he couldn't react in time. I might not understand much, but I've heard that if you truly love someone, you live for them and die for them. You didn't die for your wife. Does that mean you're living for her? But if that's the case, why is it that the moment the daughter she gave birth to became disabled, you were in such a rush to find someone to replace her? Your tone was leisurely, but every word was crystal clear. No one in the small hall spoke. The Branch family kids were all hunched over, wishing they should sink into the floor, pretending to be deaf and blind. Charles's hand trembled slightly, a sign he was on the verge of losing control. Only Chloe remained calm. She sat straight in her wheelchair, looking directly at Charles, as if trying to see through every expression, every twisted wrinkle. The dead silence lasted for about a minute. Just as Charles tightened his grip on his cane, preparing to stand and speak, Chloe spoke up. All right. She turned to look at you. You're new to River City. There are many things you don't understand yet. I'll explain them to you later. For now, wheel me out. I'll take you to my room. The atmosphere instantly thawed. Charles looked at Chloe with extreme displeasure. He had prepared a whole speech to paint himself as the absolute victim and officially cancel the engagement while he was at it. But Chloe's attitude suggested that you were merely ignorant, not to blame. A father who always presented himself as gentle and forgiving couldn't actively condemn you in a fit of rage now. He could only watch numbly as you wheeled Chloe away. Looking at the remaining Branch kids trembling like quails, Charles's eye twitched. He let out a slow, exhausted sigh and massaged his temples. Why did Chloe pick a fiancé like this? Did Daisy really say those things to you? Of course not, you answered bluntly. I made it all up. Aren't you so afraid she'll expose your lie when she wakes up? Expose me? Based on what? Just because she says it, it's the truth, but if I say it, it must be fake? In Chloe's study, you toyed with an hourglass on her desk. At that time, there were only the two of us by the lake. No one can testify for me, which means no one can testify for her either. Even so, how did you come up with the idea to fabricate those specific words? It wasn't a total fabrication. I just broadly described the things Daisy said to me. She really did look down on those newcomers. Even though she seemed to be acting indignant on your behalf, when I mentioned she also had the right to inherit, she deliberately explained her health condition at length to prove she didn't dare covet the position. But I always believe the best way to hide a desire is to ignore it and not care. The more you emphasize it, the more you care. You tapped the chair and said slowly, I'm sure she has designs on your position, so that part wasn't me making things up. Then saying Daisy is his biological daughter. You deduced that too? This time you shook your head. That part I made up. Chloe was speechless. What are you thinking? She asked seriously. All it takes is a DNA test to confirm. Yet you dared to spout nonsense. Have you considered that once the results prove they aren't father and daughter, everything you said will become total garbage? It's not a loss for me. I can tell Daisy really wants to be a true member of the Sterling family. Even though she keeps saying she's adopted, her attitude towards a guest like me clearly showed. She considers herself the master of the house. She has desire, she has ambition, but she doesn't dare show it. For someone like that, even if there's only a sliver of a chance she might be his biological daughter, she'd only feel excited and thrilled, and then start having even grander delusions. In this scenario, if you insist on dragging her to take a paternity test to clear the air, and the result is negative, it will cause a massive psychological drop and an inferiority complex. She'll start resenting your father. Even if she absolutely refuses to admit it, the more she denies it, the more frustrated she'll feel. And from that fixation, she'll only confirm her own desires and ambitions even more. That means a crack will definitely form in her relationship with your dad. And once there's a crack, you'll have more room to maneuver, right? Do you know it only takes one night to get a paternity test result? Chloe asked. She probably hasn't even thought of that yet. Even 1 minute is enough. You shrugged. The birth and expansion of desire doesn't need time. After a few seconds of silence, you looked up at Chloe. The most important thing is, after I dropped that bomb, even though your dad showed extreme outrage, he didn't immediately suggest taking a paternity test. Chloe's pupils suddenly shrank. You hesitated for a moment but continued. Even though I was just making things up earlier, now I feel like I might have hit the jackpot. Maybe you should strike first. Go pluck a strand of Daisy's hair. Chloe was silent for a long time. Then she asked, did you study psychology? You nodded but added, don't misunderstand, my major doesn't teach this kind of dark arts. I just have a knack for reading people and have deliberately studied it for years. Why? Are you that curious about the human heart? The exact opposite. I lack curiosity about humanity. Then why? I'm only curious about myself. I can see through others, but I can't see through myself. You paused. Sounds incredibly corny, but that's roughly the idea. Chloe tapped her fingers on the desk, deep in thought. With such an incident, the welcome dinner was obviously ruined. Hearing that Daisy had briefly woken up, Chloe immediately had you leave the Sterling estate. When you got home, you bumped right into Derek, who had just returned. The man gently gestured for you to come closer, then looked coldly at Chloe. You didn't take good care of my son, did you? I am very sorry. Chloe, sitting in the car, lowered her head slightly. It won't happen again. Next time. Derek smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I hope next time I can get a cancellation notice from the head of the Sterling family. Then Uncle Wood doesn't need to wait. That day will never come. Derek let out a rare chuckle. I heard Daisy Sterling is in critical condition. She's got 9 lives. She'll wake up sooner or later. Derek could barely believe this callous remark came from Chloe's mouth. Could a car accident really change a person this drastically? Before this, she was even more of an elite pacifist than Charles. Derek fell silent for a few seconds. My father won't allow me to initiate a broken engagement. Until it's absolutely necessary. I don't want to be the one to break the agreement first. Therefore, I expect you to handle the rumors surrounding my son. What happened at the Sterling house today has already leaked. Derek's eyes darkened, gritting his teeth slightly. Your Sterling family is as leaky as a sieve. Chloe stayed quiet for a moment. I'll take care of it. Before leaving, you peeked out from behind Derek and waved at Chloe. Chloe's eyes crinkled in a smile. You looked at her, suddenly thinking her smile resembled a little puppy. Still craving more drama, you turned and went inside. However, your good mood didn't last long. Very soon, 2 uninvited guests arrived at the iron gate. Derek saw them, paused, and walked over to greet them. Mom, the old lady just sneered coldly, refusing to step inside. So you still know how to call me Mom? I'm not your mother. Throwing away your family of decades just for a newly found son. I raised you for decades, and I never expected you to hit a rebellious phase at this age. Mom, what are you talking about? I still stay at the main house at night. Come inside. We can talk. I wouldn't dare. Her cloudy eyes swept over coldly. Didn't someone say nobody is allowed in without your son's permission? Max almost died standing out here. How could these old bones dare to casually step through your door? Max, who had been as silent as a ghost, slightly looked up, shooting quick glances at the two of them. Then, with a pleading look, he tugged the old lady's sleeve. Granny, let's go home. Go home? What home? This property belongs to the Wood family. Anything belonging to the Wood family has a share with your name on it. Before her shouting ended, you had already turned around and walked straight into the house. Catching a glimpse of your retreating back, Granny Wood felt her chest tighten with rage. Shaking, she pointed at you. Cole, stop right there. You stopped abruptly. In the spacious kitchen, Fiona was still busy bringing out food. The crab roe dish Derek requested was already on the table. Even from a distance, it looked incredibly appetizing under the warm lights. You instantly felt hungry, craving a bite immediately, which made the 2 people behind you incredibly annoying. It had been a long time since you felt this impatient, disgust, nausea, dark malice. It didn't feel like you were facing family, but rather trash, blocking the road, making you want to dispose of it once and for all. With your back to the last golden rays of the sunset, you slowly raised your eyes. At this moment, Granny Wood, completely unaware of your mood, kept ranting. Cole? I'm talking to you. Did you hear me? Derek's eyes grew cold. He stepped forward, blocking the old lady's line of sight. Mom, get out of my way. For the first time, Granny Wood glared at him with disappointment and fury. I never knew you were such a heartless, ungrateful person. This jinx comes back and you toss aside Max, whom you raised for 20 years. Do I, as your mother, have no standing in your eyes anymore? Derek kept his head down in silence. When he spoke again, his voice was low. Mom, calm down. If you have something to say it inside. Inside? You think I'd dare? Without your precious son's permission, who would dare step through your door? Granny Wood emphasized the words your door sharply. Derek rubbed his temples tiredly. So what do you want? We can't just stand at the door making a fool of ourselves for people to laugh at. Let them watch. Let them see it all. Ever since this jinx returned, the Wood family has become the laughingstock of River City. I don't care about face anymore. Derek frowned instantly. Mom, he is my son, not... He's your grandson too. In his dreams, the old lady yelled. He doesn't even acknowledge me as his grandmother. Do you expect me to lower myself to accept this jinx as my grandson? Don't you know what happened at the Sterling family today? Your precious son dared to push the adopted daughter of the Sterling family into the water on their turf. That girl Daisy was already frail, and she's been unconscious until now. Her venomous gaze swept past Derek, fixing onto your motionless back. Cole! Do you feel no guilt for doing something so malicious? And you too. Granny Wood glared at Fiona, who had rushed out in a hurry. What are you thinking, acting like nothing happened, cooking and planting flowers here? Fiona, having only heard half the story, quickly said, It might not have been Cole who did it. We were just... Good heavens, the old lady screamed, cutting her off, then clutched her chest, panting heavily. Are you going crazy with him? The wrinkles on her face bunched up in fury and shock. Her trembling finger pointed straight at you. This jinx, as soon as he got back, he made me faint twice. Then he forced Max to stand in the blazing sun until he got heatstroke. Now he goes to someone else's house to commit attempted murder. Mom, how is it murder? Chloe Sterling personally said Cole didn't push anyone. You believe that crippled Chloe Sterling's words? Who else in the Sterling family supports her besides that old hag? I've been saying it all along. This jinx used some dirty trick to seduce Chloe. You think he found a backer and can act arrogant in front of me? But look at Chloe's situation now. If she weren't a cripple, would she ever look twice at Cole? The old lady's vicious gaze pinned your back. I only agreed to let him come back to take Max's place, to marry that hopeless cripple. Max was raised by the Wood family for 20 years. He shouldn't have to suffer like that. But look what happened. He caused a disaster at the Sterling family and enraged Charles. I bet he can't even marry that cripple now. And you fools, defending him. She painfully pulled Max closer. You fools, letting my Max be bullied like this for a piece of trash. You have no conscience. The front yard of the villa fell into a dead silence. Fiona stood in the middle of the yard, her hands, still wet from cooking, clenched into tight fists. Her eyes were red, her chest heaving, unable to speak. Granny Wood, standing outside the iron gate, looked like she had just won a major battle, displaying a haughty expression. The most urgent thing right now is to appease Charles and the Sterling family. Even though we don't fear them, their foundation is deeper than ours, and their connections are much wider. Once Charles decides to make the Wood family pay for this, it'll be incredibly troublesome. You turned around, your tone full of curiosity. So what do you think I should do to appease them, Cole? Fiona sensed the hostility in your voice and stepped forward to stop you, but you blocked her behind you. Granny Wood sneered coldly. Obviously, you go to their door and apologize. Do whatever they tell you. Even if they sue you for attempted murder, you will obediently sit in the defendant's chair. Of course, as long as you are obedient enough, the Wood family will put in some effort to make your life a little comfortable. After all, you have Wood family blood. Hearing this, you tilted your chin slightly. Well then, what an absolute honor for me. The calm tone made the old lady furious. Just as she was about to launch into a vicious tirade, noise bursting from a phone abruptly cut her off. Then came a barrage of familiar shouting. You believe that crippled Chloe Sterling's words? Who else in the Sterling family supports her besides that old hag? Even though we don't fear them, their foundation is deeper than ours, and their connections are much wider. Once Charles decides to make the Wood family pay for this, it'll be incredibly troublesome. The phone screen emitted a faint glow. The venomous voice from the recording instantly echoed through the quiet yard. Granny Wood stood frozen outside the iron gate, dumbfounded. Reflected in her cloudy eyes was the image of a teenager looking down, tapping away on his phone. Let's see here. Where are my messages with Chloe? Ah, found it. Click send. Done.